Good day, and welcome to another educating episode of Two Mics with Two Mics. I'm Pastor Mike, and I have a microphone.
And I'm Pastor Michael, and I too have a microphone. And we want to welcome you back after an extensive little
Leave.
We had a lot going on at our church, and so we had some visitors. We had some great things that the Lord did, and
Bomb threat.
apparently a bomb threat.
Anyway, go on.
Lots of great things, but today we want to talk about a topic that we are both well versed in from personal experience in two different ways.
Yes.
What is today's topic of discussion, Pastor Wu-Tang?
Wu-Tang. Today's topic is dun 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 homeschooling.
Homeschooling.
Yep.
Yes. The employees of Chick-fil-A. Yes.
Homeschooling.
So what about homeschooling? What are we going into here? Let's see. So I guess the first question would be, what is your experience with homeschooling personally? Let's go with that.
Well, personally, my wife and I had three boys, and all three were mostly homeschooled up through and including high school.
So what was the decade, okay? Not to date you a little bit, but what was the decade where you homeschooled your first boy?
First boy was homeschooled, let me think, in the 80s.
Okay. So what would drive you to do such a thing?
Because some of the horrible teaching in public schools.
Was there like a catalyst to that or no?
Not so much that, but we did recognize and realize, I guess that's the same word, that to homeschool our firstborn was more beneficial than sending them off to public school. Because number one, we, being Christians, have a Christian worldview that somewhat differs from a secular school.
That's the first time ever hearing that.
Number two, the personalized attention that our child would get. And number three, the curriculum, of course, would all be Christian worldview-based curriculum.
So how old or what grade, I guess? Do you remember what grade he started?
Oh, I think...
Or that you started them all out?
I think David, our oldest, started in second grade. And one reason for that was we had him at a middle school here in Lincoln. Actually, it was Park Middle School. Until one day, David came home and said that a second grade classmate had opened his locker and was showing kids pornography out of his locker.
In second grade?
Second grade. And we immediately...
Aren't you like 7?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
We immediately pulled him out of school and began homeschooling.
Okay. So what did you do with the second and third child? Did you just start them off in homeschool, like elementary, preschool, and all that? What'd you do?
Now, the second one... Okay, the first, David and second child, John, 5 years apart. And so in the late 80s, we started a church here in Lincoln. And the next year, of course, my wife is homeschooling. The next year, another woman in our church who had been an elementary school teacher, she said, "Hey, I'm homeschooling my two children as well. Why don't I take your two as well and whoever else?" And so our church school actually began in her basement with about 6 or 7 students. And eventually it grew. It became Victory Fellowship Church and School. And it grew from just a few 7 students to now preschool through 12th grade. We even had a volleyball team and a basketball team. It was a cooperative homeschool.
So was your oldest part of that co-op homeschool?
He went there, yeah. He was second graduating class.
So when that started, what grade was he in? Do you remember?
Oh, no.
Was he like a high schooler at that time?
Let me think. I think he was junior high.
Okay.
Let me think. 75, that would have started. Yeah, he would have been just going into high school.
But the other two were, okay, they were obviously in elementary school and in middle school at that time. So,
Well, not the other two, just one, John, because
Okay.
then there's a 12-year difference between
okay,
John,
yeah.
John
Okay,
and
fair enough.
Wesley.
So, all right, did you see a difference in your oldest and your middle? Because your oldest was in public school, went to started doing homeschool in second grade, and then went back into almost like a private school. I mean, that's pretty much what it was. It was a
Well,
private school at your church.
Private school, but it was more cooperative homeschool.
Okay, so yeah,
because
hybrid.
The teachers, I mean, some were school teachers, others were just, homeschool moms.
Was that 5 days a week?
Oh, yeah, 5 days a week, 7-8 hours a day.
Okay, so it was school that was there. It wasn't necessarily because there's a weird difference between co-op, homeschool, and hybrid school. So that sounds more like a school at church.
It was a school at church,
Yeah.
which they called a cooperative
Okay.
homeschool.
Because yeah, there are co-ops that meet like 2 days a week, and that's it.
Right.
So benefits. I want to hear some benefits from your angle.
Well, again, benefits from homeschooling is the parents pick the curriculum that has a Christian worldview. There's lots of good ones, Bob Jones University and some others I can't think of right now. And then there's the individual attention, individual education
To help them learn.
to help them learn. And of course, people always say, well, what about social interaction?
Yeah.
Well, the homeschoolers always get together. They'll do an outing. They'll do, what do you call those?
Field trips.
Field trips,
Yeah.
yes. They'll do outings. They'll do field trips. They'll have sports together. But the cool thing about our church school was we had, like I said, a basketball team, a volleyball
Yeah.
team. And so we had all kinds of interaction. So it was just a couple of years that my wife just herself did the homeschooling, for our oldest son. Mostly it was the cooperative homeschool.
So now, obviously, there's the big other side here, and then I'd love to share my my 2 cents in this. But in terms of the social interaction, obviously they weren't deprived of social interaction.
Oh, no.
But some might say, some may say, and I have a whole personal experience on this, but some may say that because you've kept them closed off in one worldview, meaning the Christian worldview, that perhaps your sons or other children in that predicament or in that not predicament, but in that lifestyle,
That setting, yeah.
they're being overly sheltered to where now when they are done with that, they're having all kinds of different philosophies and worldviews thrown at them to where they maybe don't know how to handle it. Can you speak towards that a little
Can't
bit?
speak towards that.
Maybe we should
Yes.
get them in here.
Because obviously
Bam.
the sports that they played weren't just with the cooperative homeschool. I mean, they played YMCA soccer. My oldest son was in Elks football, as a junior high. And so they did interact with kids, quote, from the world or in that worldview. And of course, you have television. It's like it's
What
not
television did you allow in your home?
Well, I was a little more lenient than
Andy
my wife.
Griffith. He was great. Sorry. I love Potsy. Go ahead.
Flipper,
Are you about to give me the flipper? Go ahead.
just about. So yeah, I mean, and of course, there's friends in the neighborhood that weren't Christian kids. David and John always played basketball with this kid up the street named Brad, and Brad, trust me, Brad introduced them to various vices of the world.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, but another good point is you get done early. Instead of getting your kid up at 6 o'clock, putting them on a bus at 7, having them go to school, getting home anywhere between 4 and 5, homeschooling, you were typically done by 1 in the afternoon. You'd start at 8:30, 9 o'clock, and be done at 1 o'clock. Sometimes even earlier than that, depending on your kid. Plus, the other advantage of homeschooling is you didn't have to wait for the not so smart kid in class before you could move on in any given subject. But of course, nowadays they don't. Nowadays they just pass. They pass the not so smart kid. I'm being very nice in the class just because they want to get rid of them.
Oh no, they've done a lot of ludicrous things in the classroom at this point.
Right.
So, what else you got on that paper before we move on?
I think that's it. Get done early. Social interaction, personalized education. Don't have to wait for the not so smart kid.
Well, for myself, because I grew up in New York, in second grade, ironically, I believe it was second grade. It might have been third grade. So, there's this balance that you want to have when you are Christian. There's this balance you want to have even when you're not Christian, of protection versus sheltering. Because there are a lot of homeschool kids that are just weird.
They are weird.
And I'll tell you, they come through my youth group sometimes. I've had them over the years where they're like 15 years old with the maturity level of about a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, where they're still like in this child capacity because their parents have sheltered them so greatly while homeschooling them that they didn't grow up exactly.
Okay. Well, in all honesty, let me ask you, what were their parents like?
Little Johnny could do no wrong. He's just so gifted. Oh, man, little
The
Johnny.
parents kind of backward.
The parents almost worship the children. It's it's kind of creepy. I'll be honest. There are parents that think that their kids just everything they do is they're gifted. They're just gifted. It's like, okay, your kid's not gifted in everything. Like your kid may have trouble in this subject, that subject, but they don't walk on water. They're not sprouting wings and flying. They're just a kid who may be a little bit smarter because they're giving them that extra attention in homeschooling.
Right.
But my parents pulled me out in third grade because out of public school, because I was going to public school, but they pulled me out, I believe, in third grade because they started teaching third graders, and this is in New York, which they kind of set the precedent a lot of the times for the country. New York and California, they try to just impress that upon the rest of the states. They started teaching us about sex. And my parents said, and here's the protection versus the sheltering.
Right.
They said, no, we want to protect our children's innocence. We don't want to teach them about sex right now. Right. And so they pulled us out.
They're not mentally capable of handling it. They're not emotionally capable of handling it.
Exactly. So they pulled us out and they started homeschooling us. And at that time, I would be done with homeschooling like before 12.
Yeah.
For some reason, my mom would go, okay, here's how you do this. I'd run off and I'd find the weirdest places to do my homeschooling work. And I'd come back and be like, I'm done. And the questions will be right. She'd go, can you show your work? I go, no, but I'm done. And the questions would be right. So it was hard to argue. No, I just did everything in my head. I can't do it on paper. I couldn't show my
Did she ever
work.
take you to like Amigos to do your
Amigos
homeschooling?
isn't in there. No, we went to Taco Bell.
Okay.
Taco Bell. But we had kind of what you were saying. We did field trips to other places. We didn't have a church school and whatnot. But really at that time, because we were closely knit with our church, we went and did these field trips, which was, I didn't feel like we were missing anything from public school. Now, when I was in fifth grade, I went to a private school. It was actually an Assemblies of God. I forgot what it was. When it was Assemblies of God private school when I was in fifth grade. And it was different. It was a little bit weirder for me, like at that time, because with private school, I was living in Ohio, and Ohio's more spread out. So these kids were coming from everywhere. Where in New York, within 15 minutes, we were able to go and do those field trips. And so that was a little bit more of an adjustment. But then I was homeschooled again because we moved back to New York when I was in 6th and 7th grade. And that was fine. It was my sister, it was me and my mom. And that was fine. That wasn't new. And, there was kids up the block that I used to ride bikes with, and they'd, curse and all that stuff. And there was TV. They weren't homeschooled. One of those kids' names is actually an Indian immigrant named Anup. Only Anup I've ever met in my life. A-N-U-P. Yeah, he was an Indian kid that I liked.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why that's coming to my mind, but it is. Anyway, so then when I was in 8th grade, my parents sent me and my sister to a Lutheran school. It was a highly acclaimed Christian school, private school. And in 8th and 9th grade, we were there. That's where I made some of my best drug connections. Now, I did not like it, but I liked it. I didn't like it for a lot of reasons, but when I went in there, there was certain situations I really didn't know how to deal with. here's the other part of it. It's like I had dealt with people who had cursed. I dealt with people, liking girls and sex and whatnot. I understood sex, but there were things socially that I wasn't prepared for. I wasn't prepared for certain peer pressures. I wasn't prepared for a lot of things. And so I kind of started to adopt behaviors that I saw, not really understanding how to deal with it. And I really didn't go to my parents with, how do I deal with this? Because I felt like there was a connotation. This is how a lot of people feel with homeschool. A lot of kids, you can't go to your parents with talking about certain aspects of sex. I'm not saying all homeschool kids are like that, but a good portion of them, it's pretty well known sex is dirty, or we don't talk about that. And so there was a lot of things with that I didn't know how to deal with, interactions with females.
Of course, sex is not dirty.
No, God is pro-sex in his design.
Right.
And so,
just want to get that out.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I've preached on that several times, actually. But then in 10th grade to 12th grade to senior year, I was in public school and I was off to the races. Meaning I did everything I possibly could. That's when I fully ran away from the Lord. I was already running away from him
But your
in 8th or
pump was
9th grade.
primed a little bit in that Lutheran school.
Yeah, that's where it
this.
started. That's where it started.
There are several, 4, 5, maybe 6, quote, Christian schools here in Lincoln. And just because a school says it's a Christian school, that doesn't mean that everybody goes there
like I said, I made
the Lord.
Great connections.
Right.
Now, let me bring it to kind of where I'm at today, because now I'm a parent. Okay. I got me an 11-year-old, and we did
I got me an
I got one of those
11-year-old.
11-year-olds. We put her in a preschool with other people. It was a Christian preschool because we wanted her to get an education, but we didn't want her to receive all the other stuff that comes with our public school system. Let's
You wanted social interaction.
Let's be honest here. Our public school system is not just teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic and science and biology and earth science.
If they were, they would be great.
No, and that's the thing is our high schools are becoming more like colleges where they're trying to teach and push certain philosophies and worldviews that not every parent wants their child
More
believing.
like indoctrination centers.
Yeah, but even Christian or non-Christian, there are non-Christians that literally, here, I'll say Catholics, Muslims, they want to teach their children certain things about where things come from. They don't need the schools to be the parents of the kids. They need the schools to educate the children in life skills or in things that they're going to need for this world to succeed as employees and employers. But bringing back to my daughter, we homeschooled here for a little bit, and we did the co-op thing. And the co-op thing is kind of like they meet once a week, maybe twice a week. There's different kinds of co-ops where they might meet 3 times or whatever.
My wife's been involved in co-ops. I wasn't.
Yeah, and so there was benefits that there was that social interaction, and of course, my daughter has been introduced to certain concepts. Yes, through certain shows which we regulate and we watch, and yes, through people that she's met at playgrounds, and yes, through all these different avenues. But we were finding that for her, that special one-on-one intention is good, but then there's no collective mindset to push forward along with classmates. It wasn't, there's a reason CrossFit works is because you're actually competing against other people in terms of, can I do as many pull-ups? Can I do as many box jumps? So it drives on your fitness. In the same way, there is a benefit to being with others, yes, in a co-op, yes, in public schools or private schools, because you're kind of almost competing with these others, not in a literal sense, but you're competing with, I need to keep up. And so we actually put our daughter in a hybrid school, which is outside the State Board of Education, which is really nice. The hybrid school is you teach your child 2 days a week at home with the curriculum that they're taught 3 days a week at a class with other people who are homeschooling.
With what curriculum?
They use sex and math. They use a whole bunch of different things, but they're actually teaching them things that are valuable as opposed to trying to give them a worldview, which is really the biggest issue. And we saw in 2020 that when schools were shut down, there were a lot of parents who decided to homeschool their kids because they had to, but then afterwards they realized after the restrictions left and everything.
They realized the benefits of it.
They realized the benefits and they realized they could do it. Now, not every parent can homeschool. Let's just be honest. There's single parents that have to work.
More can than think they can.
It's more of a viable option than what you just said, than people believe. You have to look into the options with homeschooling. But really, like you said, there's a balance of you want to teach social interaction. Even when my daughter was fully in homeschool, social interaction happened a lot at church. It happened a lot with the co-ops. It happened a lot on play dates. It happened a lot in going to public areas and whatnot. And so, you know, how you homeschool and parent and do this really determines if your kid is going to be that weird 15-year-old acting like a 9-year-old. Because not every homeschool, the homeschool, if you look at the homeschool results in academics, they are miles above those who graduate high school. You take someone who graduated homeschool, someone who graduated public school, they are miles above in terms of their knowledge. I'm pretty sure it's a verifiable statistic that they are just able to retain that knowledge.
You learn to write cursive.
I blocked that out of my memory. I might pick it back up, as bad as that is.
Cursive. How many homeschool shootings do you know about?
I don't know many, but I'm sure there are some.
I don't mean kids that
Goodness.
were homeschooled going out and shooting somebody. I'm
No,
talking
no,
about
I know, yeah.
in the home or
Yeah.
cooperative homeschool shootings.
No, and there's been nothing like that as far as I know.
You know, when I went to high school, which was in the 1900s,
Wow, we've upgraded centuries?
Even in
All
high
right.
school, I remember because I grew up in a farming community in my high school years, in a town of a little over 1,200 people. Teenagers would drive their pickup trucks to school. They would have rifles, 1 or 2 rifles, hunting rifles, shotguns on their window, on their rack, on the back window of the truck.
The rack.
Loaded. Pickups unlocked. No school thefts. No school shootings.
See, that never fly in New York ever, but that's why different states need different laws, right? And I'll say this, and and we're gonna have to draw this to a close. If you got something else after I say this, that's fine.
No,
but,
I got nothing.
Really, one of the things that's happening in our public school system and has been for years is we see a decline in intelligence. And so the school system, instead of calling those with a lack of knowledge or inability or lesser intelligence, instead of helping them reach this goal, this bar of intelligence and knowledge, right? To reach these goals of math and curriculum, they've taken the curriculum and they moved it down to where now the curriculum is actually way lesser than it was even 15 years ago.
Yep.
Now, why would you want your child to have to suffer in terms of their learning, in terms of their skill set and their intellect? Why would you want them to suffer and have to kind of come down with the rest of society? So why would we let the government decide and the state boards decide, oh, you know what? Math is too hard. We're going to actually dumb down the math. Well, now your kid's getting deprived of what they could have for life, what they could have for college, what they could
A lot
have.
of parents, the love of money is the root of all evil. And they'd rather be out working than educating their child.
But we understand some people, we understand that some single mothers, some single fathers, they don't really get that option. Some of them don't.
I'm not talking about single mothers.
Oh, I'm using that because I agree. There are people that are in 2-parent homes where they love money.
Where the wife could be homeschooling their children, but they'd rather have the money than to have the love for their child.
And there's a sacrifice to raising children.
Yeah.
This could be part of it. This could be part of it where it's valuable. I'm very thankful to my parents for homeschooling me, and I'm believing my daughter and my son will be thankful in the same way. I know your sons are thankful.
Yes, they better be.
They better be, or that homeschool shooting. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, and it's not a good thing. Not a good thing. So I would say if you're able to, look into homeschooling, look into hybrid schools, look into the co-op schools, look into the possibility of homeschooling, because even if you're in a single parent home, it's possible to pull that off in some manner with family members, with friends, with trusted relatives somehow, to where you're giving the education that your children really deserve instead of getting worldviews a majority of the time that you don't want your kids to have coming from the public school system. Or even the private school system, really. But private, you get a little bit more of a choice. So,
A lot more of a choice. Go ahead.
what else you got?
I got nothing.
You got nothing?
I got nothing.
All right.
Other than I remember the day when here in Nebraska, when Pastor Sullivan from Louisville, Nebraska, where his church was padlocked by the Nebraska State Patrol because of homeschooling, having a church school.
Well, thank the Lord we've come a long way
I
since
think
then.
that was either 1981 or 1983.
I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. But then you also have those who abuse it. Here, I'll give this other thought. You have those who say they're homeschooling their kids and don't do anything with them.
Don't do anything.
And that is wrong. That's wrong. If you're going to homeschool your kids, make the sacrifice, make the commitment, get the curriculum, and teach them the things they're going to need for life. So that being said, thank you for tuning in to Two Mics with Two Mics. Please like, share, subscribe. If you have a homeschool experience or have met the children of the corn homeschoolers, feel free to email
That's
us.
bad. You know that?
There are some that are
but
weird.
Compare that to kids in public schools that are just nuts.
All right, so
They're
we
nuts.
have psychos over here,
They're sexual deviants,
and we
they
have
murder
the
in their
Kool-Aid
heart.
drinkers over here. Fine.
Right.
I'll give you that. If we're going to compare the two, I'll
'Cause their
take the Kool-Aid
parents are
drinkers
raising
over
little
that.
demons. That's what they're doing.
Little hellions. Please like, share, subscribe. Yes. Email us at ask2mics, ASKTWOMIKES. If you have some homeschool questions, we'd love to answer them. Our wives are well-versed in the homeschooling community.
Yeah.
And so, yes. And to all those homeschool wives or husbands out there, thank you for making that sacrifice for your children. It is going to be worth it in the end. So bless you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.